Hello everybody, welcome to a patch analysis video. You only get me for today. I do apologize. I also apologize for this being a little bit late. My schedule has been, I'm still jet lagged from the major somehow. This is what happens when you get super old. Only went there for like 4 days. The second I acclimate to the schedule, I come back, and now it's taking me forever to get on a normal schedule. Plus, these patches are coming out super early on Thursday. That was like, I want to say like 7 a.m. or so, Seattle time. Seems a little weird, but I guess that is more prime time for EU. Also, probably, this is actually something I want to talk about. The patches coming out during a major. Games have already been played, so a lot of people are expecting a small patch. I'd say it's a pretty medium-sized patch. Changes a decent amount, but I'll try to make this a little quicker than usual since I'm not with anybody. I mean, it should do that on its own, but first things first, Pangalier's in captain's mode. Hell yeah. My favorite hero right now in Dota. A lot of fun to play, a lot of fun to watch, and the fact that he can play multiple positions means I am super excited to see him. Of course, you guys already seen him in captain's draft. He hasn't really been changed a whole lot since then. I think he might have gotten one nerf, possibly, maybe two, but they're just cooldown based for his ult. We'll see how strong he actually is. Dark Willow was put in a few weeks ago, and at first nobody was really picking. Now she's kind of getting banned every game, it feels like. So see if the same is in store for the old Pangolier. Neutral stack bounty increased by 5%. Okay. Item changes, mana generation reduced from 3.2 to 3.0. A lot of this stuff, it just feels like they're just making even numbers. Forget about that 0.2 for whatever reason. Heart of Tarask, strength increased from 40 to 45. What is that? 200 extra health. Obviously, if you're a strength hero, 5 extra damage on top of that, and then whatever the minute status resistance you'll get as a strength hero as well. One of my favorite items from Dota 1, so glad to see it getting a little bit more love. Of course, back in the day, it didn't deactivate upon getting hit, so it actually used to be really good. Moonshard attack speed increased from 120 to 130. All right, so only a 10 increase, not a big deal. Nullifier projectile speed decreased from 1200 to 900, so it's a little bit slower. When this first came out, I didn't even know there was a projectile. It was just so fast. A lot of times you get this on a melee hero anyway, so you don't really see it. Haven't seen this in game yet, but that's a pretty substantial. That's what, a 25% decrease, so might be able to see that projectile a little bit easier now. Refresher orb mana regeneration increased from 3 to 5. All right, they got rid of a lot of the regeneration from this item back. How long has it been now? I'm not sure, but probably needed a little bit more. It definitely makes sense, especially considering how many perseverances are in it. Satanic duration increased from 4.5 to 5. This item, again, I'm going to go way back. So when it's just me, I'm just going to talk about Dota 1 because this stuff I remember a lot of. Hopefully you find it interesting. This item used to be, I think, 6 seconds, I want to say. It used to be incredibly good. It was almost impossible not to get it off. But this item, you see it every now and then you don't really see these big moments, you know? That extra half second might be enough to be able to heal fully. But again, it could just be that let's stop doing these odd, weird numbers. Silver Edge break duration decreased by 1 second from 5 to 4, and the cooldown reduced by 2 seconds. So a little bit of a nerf for Silver Edge. I mean, probably fair. Pretty good item. I wouldn't say it's picked up like all the time. I guess it depends on the hero. Like if you're going against a Bristleback, this is a buff to Bristleback. That's a second less of getting destroyed. So that's good for him. Skullbasher and Abyssal, the bash duration increased from 1.4 to 1.5. Again, just feels like, even though it's not technically an even number, it feels more like one, you know? So slight buff to these items. And Spirit Vessel, enemy current health base damage changed from 3% direct HP modification to 4.5% magical damage. So what that means, it is reduced by magic resistance. That's a pretty big, I would say that's a decent nerf, depending on what heroes you're playing. I mean, direct HP modification is ridiculous. I always thought this item was a little too strong. Out of the the newer items that were put in the game, this was definitely, I think, the best. So I would call this a definite nerf. But, I mean, we'll see it in game. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. All right. On to the hero changes. Anti-Mage. Mana Void damage increased by 0.2 at the earliest level, 0.1 at the second level, and it stays the same at level 3. So it's a little bit more consistent across the board. Just felt like level 1 is complete garbage. A lot of times you'd see anti-mages not even just bother picking up the level 1 ult. Now, I would think about it. 0.8, it's not bad, actually. That was almost equivalent to level 2 from before, so not too bad. Arc Warden, Flux cooldown reduced by 2, and Magnetic Field AoE increased by 25. So a little bit of small changes to him. Don't like this hero, don't care. Axe, Battle Hunger, duration increased from 10 to 12. Slacks would be very happy with this change. If you don't know, he goes Battle Hunger max on Axe with counter Helix. He does not get Call. It's actually a very old school build, but he doesn't know that because he never played Dota 1. Bloodseeker, Thirst, Linger bonus duration increased from 2 to 4. That's pretty sizable. I mean, it literally doubles it. So getting a little bit of extra move speed for Bloodseeker. Here we don't really get to see very often. I feel like he's a good counter to a few heroes. The first one that came to my mind was Anti-Mage. He's been picked a couple times recently, but kind of fell off if you're looking at the last like 4 or 5 months. Bloodseeker is a good counter to him, but it's just such a weird hero. It feels very one-dimensional. That's why I don't think he's found that much play in the past few years. Bounty Hunter, Shuriken Toss. Mana cost increased to be a static 150, which is what level 4 used to be. This is a pretty big nerf. Maybe it's not a huge nerf, but especially for early game, you go for, what would it be, like depending on the build. If you want to kill couriers, I think you need 2 in the Shadow Walk, right? But if you're going for the more traditional, you're going to max Shuriken, be more like a 3-1-1. It's going to cost a lot more mana. It feels bad for Bounty, actually. So small nerf. I mean, it seems like a small nerf. We'll see how big it actually is. I think it's a hero that they don't want to disappear. No pun intended. That's why you don't see any huge changes. Chen, Holy Persuasion, can no longer target non-playered allied creeps. So what players used to do, beginning of the game, they would Holy Persuasion a creep from your own base. It would go back to Fountain and have to walk the distance. That means that the opposing wave would push into the tower, thus helping you with creep equilibrium, or at least letting the lane push into your advantage. So you could actually last hit. So they're getting rid of that, which is good, because that was kind of weird, I felt. That is reserved for the liches of the world, I feel like. That was kind of a poor man lich move, since the creep does end up showing up again. Clinks, strafe duration increased by half a second. Does this make a difference for Clinks? I don't know. It's, I don't know. The hero is just another hero that's super one-dimensional. So some patches he'll be good, some patches he won't, depending on what heroes are popular at the moment. But I don't think this makes any difference. Crystal Maiden, base damage increased by 3, and Arcane Aura self-mana regen increased by, weirdly, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1 at level 1, 2, and 3. I don't know why. I have no idea why they did this, but hero hasn't seen a whole lot of play, so maybe as a Chen counter. But okay, whatever. Small change. Darkseer. Now this is interesting. Vacuum. This hero has seen only nerf after nerf after nerf over the last 7 years. Time to give him some love. Vacuum AoE increased pretty substantially, 150 at level 1, and ends up being the same at level 4. So there's actually less of a reason just from this line alone to get past level 1 for Vacuum. You can just get that value level. But let's see what else. Vacuum cooldown rescaled. So now it's much higher cooldown at level 1. So that gives you incentive now to actually level this up. The cast range has been rescaled. So at the highest level, it's actually 100 more than before. Vacuum pull duration increased. So that, I believe, is the time in which people are kind of stunned with the vacuum, if that makes sense. They're in that period of, what's that word? Flailing. So that's 0.6 seconds now. And the damage for vacuum rescaled to be higher at level 4, but lower at the earlier levels. So interesting changes to Darkseer. Kind of switching things around a bit, but I would definitely call this overall a buff to the hero. Wall of Replica, incoming illusion damage reduced from 400 to 300%. So obviously that is a nerf. And Wall of Replica width increased by 300. I haven't seen this in game. It's actually visual. You know what? I said this wasn't going to be a long video, but we do got to see this. If it's 300, isn't 300 pretty big? It could be the same size visually, and just the hitboxes are bigger, if that makes sense. Does that look thicker to you guys? It does not to me. So it just means you can be a little bit farther away now, and it'll spawn the illusions, I believe. Okay. All right, so yeah, Dark Willow. So this one shall be interesting. Terrorize cast time increased by 0.2. So it takes a full second to cast Terrorize. Definitely needed. Still don't understand why you can see Terrorize when you cast it. I was talking to somebody about this. I can't remember. They thought that only the allies could see Terrorize, the casting particle thingy, whatever you want to call it, before it's even cast. That's not true. Both teams can see it. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the thing. But now it takes a full second to see it. So maybe you'll see that abused even more. Who knows? Bedlam, which I think is the thing that most players have been complaining about. The cooldown has been increased by 5 at level 2 and 10 at level 3. So can't spam it quite as much. That's still pretty low for your second ultimate. Dazzle, poison touch damage increased. Looks like it goes all the way up to 52 at level 4 versus the 40 from before. So, of course, that does add up. I mean, so this doesn't change anything for support Dazzle, right? Does this change anything for more core Dazzle, where you actually get levels really early on? Like, could you play Dazzle mid like the old days? I don't know. It sucked pretty hard. We've seen it in a couple of competitive matches too, and it was real bad. But this definitely makes that better. I don't know in a normal game when you're playing support if you get level 4 poison touch all that often. But hey, I'm open to new things. Death Prophet, Spirit Siphon charge, restore time increased. Looks like it was nerfed pretty heavily at the early levels, but ends up being the same amount of time at level 4. And Silence mana cost increased to be 30 more at level 4. It scales up. So definitely a hero that needs... I thought she was going to get a bigger nerf than this. She's in literally every game, and I'm sick and tired of seeing her personally. But for the earlier levels, she's definitely not as powerful because of that Spirit Siphon change. Disruptor, Static Storm no longer lingers on your hero for half a second after walking away from the AoE. It already ends immediately once the spell is over. Okay. And Kinetic Field cooldown increased dramatically. 6 second extra on level 1. Ends up being the same at level 4. So, again, Disruptor, been seeing him a lot. Again, I was expecting him to perhaps get a bigger nerf than this, but this is a start. Definitely worse off earlier in the game. And depending how you level in the game, might be stuck on these levels for quite a while. Drow Ranger, Precision Aura attack damage bonus increased to... Let's see, it was a 6% increase at level 4. So, decent buff for Drow. Not bad. All in all, I feel like it's still kind of small. Elder Titan, Echo Stomp. Initial stun duration reduced from 0.8 to 0.2. What does that even mean? Echo Stomp initial stun duration. Here, let's look at Elder Titan. So, Echo Stomp... What does that mean? Initial stun duration. So it's stunned for 0.8 seconds. That seems like a long time until it gets into the sleep duration. So now it's just a super quick, and then it's the sleep. I actually wasn't aware it was 0.8 seconds. That seems super high. Ember Spirit, base armor increased by 1. Okay. Enchantress, untouchable, slow, rescaled. See what they did here. So it's much lower at level 1 or basically level 1. Then it catches up and ends up being a little bit higher at level 4. So 140 versus 130 for the slow. She's way too good at level 1 in lane. If you don't have her like as a jungler, or not jungler, but like a position 4 roamer, she was quite good in that 1v1 scenario. Enchant cooldown rescaled. So looks like it's much higher in the earlier levels. So this actually hurts the roaming Enchantress, I would say. Enchant slow increased to be basically even numbers, 3, 4, 5, 6, or I keep saying even, you know what I mean? I mean whole numbers, not decimal based. So slight buff there. And Enchant Dominate duration rescaled from 80 to 50, 60, 70, 80. So this is a pretty sizable nerf to Enchant overall. I thought that this spell was kind of fine, honestly. I mean, you can dispel people, which is super nice. Like if it basically works like the old Diffusal Blade in a lot of ways. So maybe that's why they wanted to touch this up a bit more or nerf it. Impetus mana cost rescaled to be much better at level 1 and a little bit higher at level 3. So not much of a change there, but definitely better for the earlier stages of Impetus. Overall, nerf. Gyrocopter flat cannon cooldown increased from 30 to 40. That's a long time. And homing missile hits to destroy is now static 3 instead of 4 at levels 3 and 4. So easier to kill homing missile. Gyrocopter needed a nerf, and it got. This is the thing I like about Ice Frog. He doesn't really destroy heroes all the time. There have been a few. I remember the worst in recent memory was Tinker. That was maybe 2.5 years ago. He just blew him up. And it's taken him this long to get back into the meta. Gyrocopter still should be strong, but definitely not as good as before. Io, base damage reduced by 4. Tether now sets your movement speed to match the tethered target's speed. That is awesome. You probably didn't need boots that often before. Now you definitely don't need boots on Io. Tether also has no duration, so it's just permanent as long as you're in range. That is crazy cool. I really like that. I feel like it's more of a quality of life change than anything. I don't think it changes maybe that much gameplay because, I mean, it does a bit, but in most situations, it's just more nice to have. Tether movement speed rescaled to be less at the earlier levels, but same at level 4. And the regen sharing rescaled to kind of scale up to what it used to be, which is 1.5. So it starts at 1.2 now. All right, this is definitely a buff to Io. That's awesome because it's a cool hero. Sets your movement speed to match the tethered target speed. So the one thing to keep in mind, I was seeing that there was a bug that it doesn't allow you to go above max speed right now. That probably is a bug. So if you have Lycan or something, I would assume it should work eventually. But the way that I read this makes me think that if the target you're tethering gets slowed, then you will be slowed with them, which that's cool as well. I think overall it's definitely a buff, but just a cool change. I really like it. Very cool. Relocate cooldown increased by 10 seconds at level 1, 10 seconds at all levels, in fact. So, I mean, overall, maybe this is just not a nerf or a buff. Maybe it's just ends up evening out. Just makes it easier to play. Either way, I like it. I don't know why, but I really like it. The tether not having a duration is great. Always hated those situations where you're trying to time it with your ult and it's just coming off cooldown. Now you have that like 1 second period to cast it. Now you don't have to worry about that anymore. Pretty cool. Leshrac base movement speed increased by 5. Okay. Lightning Storm damage rescaled to be higher at the earlier levels and the same at level 4. I don't think that makes any difference so far. Lightning Storm slow duration rescaled to be less at the earlier levels and the same at level 4 from before. And Lightning Storm cast point reduced by 0.05. How does this make any difference? Lightning Storm's still garbage. Like, Diabolic Edict is, I mean, not that Lesh has really picked up that often, but when you pick them, you don't say Lightning Storm. That's why you pick this here. You pick it because of the stun, and you pick it because of Diabolic Edict. Meh. I don't like these. This cast point needs to be reduced to 0.1. Then it would be really good. The Han days. Lich Sacrifice. The mana conversion increased at all levels, substantially at the earlier ones. So Lich gets some love. Lifestealer Open Wounds mana cost increased to be 140. It does not scale down anymore. So it is just always 140. It's a little bit of nerf for him. He's always mana starved, so that is definitely a problem. Lion Earth Spike mana cost rescaled. See, it's lower at the earlier levels, but the same at level 4. Maybe incentivizes you to get earlier levels of mana drain. Maybe. Magnus, Skewer AoE increased by 10. And Reverse Polarity stun duration increased by 0.5. Really, half a second at level 1. Oh, okay. It ends up being the same at 3.75 for the level 3 anyway. So just a little buff to the earlier levels of RP. Mirana base attack damage range has been tightened up. So from 39 to 50 to 43 to 48. So just more consistent attacks from Mirana. Ends up averaging to about the same, I assume. Monkey King Wukong's command soldier attack rate improved by 0.1. So they'll attack a little bit faster. Okay, cool. He could use a little bit more love. I think it's a fun hero to watch. I think everybody's scarred from when he first came out. Which is unfortunate because, yeah, he was super strong. But still a cool hero and enjoyable to watch and competitive for sure. Necrophos, Heartstopper aura, increased to do more damage at level 4 by 0.3%. How much is that actually? 0.3% of somebody's max HP? Is that really a big deal? I don't know. But Death Pulse mana cost also got rescaled a bit, so it is lower at the earlier levels and slightly higher at level 4, but not, I wouldn't say a huge change either way. Don't think this changes the hero at all. It's still almost unplayable, which is unfortunate. Again, another hero that I feel like people are scarred from when his ags deleted you from the game. Ogre Magi multicast no longer increases Fire Blast mana cost. I didn't even know it did that. There are so many changes in or old things from original Dota that you take for granted, you forget. Sometimes they rework them, and it's just, believe me, when you've played this game for, what is it now for me? God, I don't even know at this point. It's double digits in years, that's for sure. It's everything gets jumbled. Multicast no longer increases Fire Blast mana cost. Why would it do that to begin with? But yeah, they're getting rid of maybe some legacy stuff like that. Omni Knight Repel mana cost increased by 35. Wow. I would say that's somewhat substantial, actually. So more nerfs for Omni. We'll see if it ends up... very slowly, they're nerfing... This feels like a Darkseer moment here, right? Nerf, 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 nerf. Eventually, he will stop being picked and then be unpickable like Darkseer was. Or maybe still is. I don't know, based on the changes. Don't think that one puts him over the top, though. PA, Stifling Dagger, can be targeted on spell immune. Of course, it won't slow, but the physical damage will go through. That's good. Nice quality of life change. Phoenix Supernova Radius increased by 300. Doesn't sound like that much, but when it actually is. Just think about the 1,000 radius it does now, and add 300. It's pretty massive. That's a pretty big area. And Supernova now turns night into day for the duration and has the highest priority, meaning it goes through darkness. A great counter for Night Stalker, guys. I don't know if this has any actual gameplay effect. It could, depending on if you're playing against heroes that take advantage of nighttime, Night Stalker being at the top of the list. if you have Coddle on your team or something like that. It could be bad if Coddle's on the enemy team. But lore-wise, it's a fucking supernova, right? It should make everything bright. So I think it's cool. We'll see if it actually changes the gameplay at all. I mean, this is a hero that I wish they would make less of a support and more of an off-lane initiation kind of guy. Because if you guys have ever seen this in a competitive game where they get a bunch of items, like Shivas, Ags, something to that effect, it is probably one of the top 10 most fun heroes to watch, I think. Super fun to watch this hero. But yeah, he's just boring as fuck to watch for me. Just support. Razor, static link, cast range reduced by 50, but the break range remains. So slight nerf. And unstable current damage reduced by 40 at level 1, and ends up only losing 10 at level 4. So not doing nearly as much damage, which I feel like the slow and the dispel are the bigger deals than the damage personally, but because you can't really control the damage, right? You're next to a creep, you can try to position yourself to try to get the last hit with it if you get it coming a little bit closer, but it's kind of finicky, it feels. And I mean, the day that you can enable and disable it at will, that's when it gets to be very good, actually. But this is kind of used as one of the big counters to Omni Knight's Guardian Angel. So again, this change does not change anything. Ricky, this one's interesting. Tricks of the Trade reworked. Instead of hitting every hero in the AoE once per second, it hits a random one every 0.5, 0.45, or 0.4 seconds, depending on the level. Tricks of the Trade will hit creeps if there are no heroes available, and Tricks of the Trade duration increased by 1 second at all levels. Very interesting. So as far as damage goes, this felt pretty underwhelming in most games as Ricky. You can play super greedy and then it starts to deal a little bit of damage, but in most cases, it didn't feel like it was doing much damage. But now you're hitting twice. Let's just, for the sake of argument, just say it's level 1. You're hitting twice per second, and for 6 seconds, that's 12 attacks. Of course, it's on a random target, so now you don't want to do it where there's a bunch of creeps or heroes necessarily, unless you have a lot of farm and you have like Battle Fury or something. Now you want to kind of isolate somebody, which is kind of the point of the hero, right? You put down a smoke cloud and you isolate them, and then you pop this. If you do that correctly, it will actually deal way more damage than before. So I think this is a cool change. I have yet to try it in game. In fact, we have a little bit of time. This is going faster than I expected. I'm just zooming through it. Demo hero. All right. Level up. That's the enemy. Wrong one. All right. First, we're going to try it on creeps. I mean, see how low the cooldown is? It's 40 seconds at level 1, 30 at level 3. You could farm waves with this because Ricky really has problem. Like, one of his main issues is, we're going to see how much damage he does to just a regular hero. Oops, I meant to only spawn. Well, we'll do both. But his biggest problem is being able to wave push. Because think of it this way. You have a Ricky on your team. Yeah, he's great in like the early to mid game at creating vision. Well, the whole game creating vision, but and isolating heroes, getting a pick off here and there, helping each respective lane that's needed. But then when it gets to the late game where you start getting split pushed, he is worthless, right? He feels like a liability. He can't farm. He can't push waves. His entire reliance on getting farm is killing heroes. Now, maybe it's not the best, but you can go to a side lane and just hit the R button. And if you have a little bit of farm, you can clear that wave and just be on your merry way. So I think it's pretty cool. All right, we have 2 level 25s. Of course, no items on anybody. So based on that, I would say one of these guys definitely dies, right? So you isolate. Boom. It's pretty good. All right, he's not going to die, but still. That's without any items. I think this is a buff to Ricky. I like it. you have to. It's not as brain dead as before. You can't just hit R and expect something to happen, right? You got to set it up. You got to position yourself. Blink dagger might be. We've seen blink before used as an escape mechanism out of the ult. Maybe you'll see it now as more of an initiation with the ult. I mean, who knows? Only time will tell. But I like these changes a lot. Rubik telekinesis cooldown increased by 6 seconds at level 1. Ends up being the same at level 4 from before. But yeah, pretty decent nerf for Rubik in the early stages of the game. Sand King base movement speed reduced by 5, and Burrow Strike stun duration. It was always 2.17 for some reason, and they have finally changed it. Ends up being about the same at level 4, but a little bit less at 1.9 for the level 1 stun. But yeah, oops. What the heck happened there? Where are we on? Sand King. All right. Shadow Demon. Demonic Purge slow now always scales linearly with time from 100% to 20%. So what that means is, I can't remember how long Demonic Purge is, but it'll slow at 100% and then scale to 20% by the end. It's kind of like open wounds, right? The linear scaling. The cooldown has been increased to 60 and also affects charge replenish, so that's definitely a nerf. The charge replenish, of course, is for Aghanim Scepter. And Demonic Purge duration increased by 2 seconds. Okay, well, that's a buff. So it's 100% slow and then scales down to 20% for a 7-second duration. So that's pretty nice. Demonic Purge no longer roots non-hero units for 3 seconds. Okay, I had no idea it even did that. Demonic Purge now continuously dispels the target. Wow. That's pretty giant. That's a buff. So I'm trying to think. Before, it would dispel on cast, like right away, I believe. And then the damage would come at the end. I believe that's happening. Maybe the dispel's at the end as well, but I think so. Now, that whole 7-second period, it will constantly dispel. So you can't... I'm trying to think, like War Cry. Somebody casts War Cry, it will dispel it. Doesn't matter if it was after the cast or during, doesn't matter. So pretty cool. I like that. So you can use this to initiate on somebody, and then let's say Omni Knight comes in and pops Guardian Angel, it'll get dispelled. Doesn't matter that it's already been cast. That's really nice. Of course, Repel cannot be dispelled, so he still has that. Slardar, Guardian Sprint no longer has a, thank you, God, no longer has a 15% damage amp. Oh. And Guardian Sprint duration reduced by 2. Whatever, I'll take it. This hero has just died, right? He's been off the map for so long. And I've always wondered, and I said this in a few patch videos if you guys have watched him, why does he take 15% more damage when he's sprinting? Like, I don't think it's even needed. I don't think it was ever needed. Maybe when he was super, super popular, picked every single game, but it just felt really random. And I mean, sure, it made you, I mean, the one thing I will say, it added a little bit of a skill cap because you can't just spam sprint when it's off cooldown constantly. You have to think about it, but still, it's no fun taking extra damage. Really like that change. Slark base HP regen increased from 1.5 to 2.75. That's really nice for him. He desperately needs HP regen in the first 5 levels. And turn rate improved by 0.1. We'll have to see. All right, we're going to try it, actually. It's hard to visualize how big of a difference it makes, 0.1 on the turn rate. This here really needs it because of Pounce. I mean, at this point, it's like placebo effect, right? I don't know if what I'm feeling is, it feels faster, but that's because I know it's faster. But essentially what this does, it'll allow you to hit Pounce more consistently because you can turn around faster. So this is one of the heroes that definitely benefits from, well, every hero benefits from turn rate changes or buffs, but he's more reliant on it, I think. Sniper Assassinate mana cost reduced at level 2 and 3. So it's only 275 at level 3 versus 375 from before. So 100 off. Okay, don't think that really changes anything. You can spam it more often, I guess. Maybe the Aghanims build. No. Spectral Dagger damage increased by 40 at level 1 and 40. Okay, 40 at all levels, it seems. I think that's fine. The hero is pretty much dead in the water right now. 40 damage probably won't really change that, but it's a start. It does feel like this just didn't do any damage. 200 damage, like, nah. It's mostly used for the slow and the terrain walking. But yeah, this hero is still garbage. Spearbreaker, Empowering Haste. The active no longer reduces your movement speed afterwards. Thank God, another quality of life change. This feels just like the Slardar damage amp. And the Empowering Haste cooldown increased by 8. So that's kind of the trade-off. I'll take it. So now you activate it, and there's no real downside, right? Other than the fact that you have to wait 20 seconds for it to come up again. But one of the weirdest skills in the game, Empowering Haste. You don't feel the difference when you play it. You know you need to click it because it should be doing something. You don't really feel it though, you know. And then if you click it, you're like, now I'm gonna be screwed, because then you can really feel it when it's off. I don't know what keeps happening. What am I clicking? Like, look at that. I just clicked up here. What is that? All right. Where were we? Spearbreaker. So TA, movement speed increased by 10. When's the last time we saw more than 5 increase of movement speed on somebody? It's been a while. And as I say that, somebody's going to look it up and prove me wrong. I have no idea. It just feels like it. Timbersaw, Chakram, mana cost per second reduced. Now these are weird numbers. Ends up being the same at level 4, but lower at level 1 and 2 slightly. So saves a little bit of mana for Timber. I've noticed when you play Timber, you have like Arcane Boots. That's about it. Soul Ring at level 6. If you're lucky. And using Chakram just almost feels like it's not worth it a lot of the time. So this helps a bit. The initial mana cost has also been reduced. That helps as well. 20 off of level 1. Ends up being the same at level 3. Tiny base health regen reduced by 1 from 2.5 to 1.5. And the avalanche cooldown increased again. Ends up being the same at level 4. But the first 3 levels you will suffer a bit. 20, 19, 18, 17. I don't want to talk about Tiny. I'm sad about his current state. I know he's picked competitively. I just prefer the old Tiny. I prefer the Aghanim Scepter Tiny. I'm gonna be the hipster. I know everybody else likes the new Tiny. I don't. I'm gonna say it right now. I do not like the new Tiny. He's been very disappointing to me. Treant Protector base intelligence increased by 3. Okay. Berserker's Rage for Troll Warlord. Attack time improved by 0.05. Again, one of those things that... Oh, actually, sorry. This is base attack time. You will probably feel the difference, I want to say. Like the turn rates, the cast chain, like when it's 0.1 or 0.05, I think you'll have a hard time definitely feeling it. I mean, maybe you do if you're very sensitive to those types of things, but for base attack time, I think you will feel this, especially when you start to get some items. Interesting that they changed this to buff him. But that's kind of the name of the game for Troll is attack speed. So, okay, we'll see. Tusk Ice Shards cooldown increased by 2 at level 1, 2 at all levels, in fact. Probably needed. A little bit too strong. Ice Shards just feel like you can almost spam them. Probably this doesn't really change that much though. Undying Zombie critical health attack speed boost. Wait, what? Undying Zombie critical health attack speed boost increased from 50 to 75. Oh, okay. The little zombies from the Tombstone, they have that frenzy attack, I think it's called. So that's been buffed a bit. And the Flesh Golem Hero Kill Heal increased from 10% to 15, 20, 25. Not going to lie, guys. You can call me... I forgot this even did that. Undying has, over the past 10 years, had a lot of changes. Let's read this real quick. So I know this amplifies damage. So when you kill a hero or a creep, it heals. I feel like I knew that. I definitely knew that, but I've forgotten. So that's been buffed. I mean, it's not really that noticeable a lot of the time, right? But now I want to say it definitely will be. 25% is huge. That is huge. So we'll see if Undying is played a little bit more often because of this change. Warlock. Golem's attack damage increased. By the way, again, I'm just going to preface or reiterate the fact that there's been... I know some of you are as old school as me and can relate. If so, post it in the comments. But even just changes from like something that's not relevant anymore from Dota 1, it just gets muddled in my mind, you know? Like, I don't think this is skill, but this is just an example. If you guys remember, his old skill, he had another one before this, but when I was playing more prominently, Undying's ult did not change him into a flesh golem. It was a single target skill that you applied to an enemy that amplified damage. That's all it did. Very boring. It was almost like a soul catcher, but single target. So, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I know, I'm getting old. It all gets muddled in my brain. That's one thing, believe it or not, when you're a newer player, it's actually easier to remember a lot of these patch notes because you don't have to remember 10 years of garbage that's just still in there, you know? Anywho, Golem's attack damage increased by 50 at level 3. I mean, that's pretty big, isn't it? I feel like that's a lot. They do a lot of damage already, I feel like. So, I mean, that's not his problem, right? That the golems don't do damage. It's getting to the point where you can cast the golems consistently. But if you can get them off, they're even more powerful now. Wind Ranger, otherwise known as Windrunner. Fix some clunkiness with how Wind Ranger attacks the target during focus fire. Okay. Wyvern, base intelligence increased by 1, and the Arctic Burn attack range changed. It is higher at the earlier levels, ends up being the same at level 4. So a little bit easier to harass early on from a distance. And last but not least, Zeus attack range increased by 30, and his base attack damage increased by 5. Hell yes! I love being able to just last hit with Zeus without having to use that arc lightning, man. That's great. We'll see how much difference this actually makes, though. So, 380 attack range. I'm trying to think, in all my time in Dota, I don't think they've ever changed his attack range. So, and I play this hero a decent amount. Sorry. I know I said this would be short. It's been pretty short, actually. I just want to see. This one I should feel, right? 30 attack range. I don't. I don't feel the difference. I mean, I don't. Do I feel the difference in the damage? I missed that last hit, I know. I should do the last hit challenge with this guy. I feel the difference. That would have been a miss. Placebo. See what I'm doing to myself? All you psych majors out there. You can understand. Okay. Well, that's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. That is the patch. That is 7.12. Let us know what you thought about the patch changes in the comments below. If I had to highlight anything that I really like, let me just go through it real quick. A lot of the quality of life changes, like empowering haste, great. The Guardian sprint, fuck's sake, dude. Why is it jump? Guardian sprint change, great. Ricky, can't wait to try that in game. Phoenix Supernova, it's a little gimmicky, but it's kind of cool. Let's see what else. I'm just looking at the heroes to see if anything. Io, I think this hero is going to be played a lot more because of this. Not that he wasn't already, but a lot more. I'm interested to see if I am horribly wrong about Leshrac, because I do like that hero. I just think Lightning Storm, you can literally delete that skill, and he will be almost the same hero. That's how I feel. You can give him an entirely different skill, And maybe you should. Maybe you should just give him a new skill. Gonna see a little bit less gyro. Thank God for that. A little bit less disruptor and death prophet. Maybe not as much as I would hope. Darkseer, will he make a return? Will he make a resurgence? No pun intended. I don't know. And the Battle Hunger build for Axe? No, don't think so. And that's about it. Pangolier. That's the last one, of course. That one is my highlight because, oh, I love that hero. So fun to watch, so fun to play. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, SUNSfan signing out. Have a good one.